Okay, hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and I'm live here from my office. You can see my grandson's incredible artwork over my left shoulder there, and hope everyone's doing okay. Hope many of you have gotten your vaccine already or are about to get your vaccine or will get your vaccine soon. I did get my second dose on Monday, so 3 days ago, and so far so good. So I think I've passed and there's an article in today's paper actually reporting some of the statistics both from Israel as well as in the US in terms of reactions. And actually, the number of people having reactions to the dose is actually less than predicted from the initial data. So that part's really good. So hope everyone's doing well there. Uh, I should have disconnected my phone, which I'm going to do right now. So now that I disconnected my phone, sorry about that. We also, on CTisus, if you look at the top of the page, we are having a course, a one-day CT course, remote, 8 CME credits, about 10 lectures, should be really good. It ain't big in Orlando, but it's as good as we're going to get in the middle of COVID. Just so there's no confusion, if you want to attend the course and you don't want CME credits, so a lot of the people who watch CTisus are from outside the US, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, and even Canada. You don't need CME credits, maybe Canada does. So you don't need to register. If you need CME credits, you need to register. If you need to register, if you're a doc, it's $100. If you're a tech, it's $50. So it's a really good deal. But if you don't need the credits, don't worry about registering, just log on. We will have the course, you'll be able to take it later on. I think for free it's going to be at the time, but I think later on it'll be remote and we'll have it on CTisus. So I think you'll be able to watch it if you can't see everything that day. It's a Saturday, or your time zones. I know a lot of our friends in different parts of the world have made the comment that you know it's just hard to do. But you know, bottom line is it should work out because you'll be able to watch it at a later date. So let's go with the topic today. The topics on misdiagnosis. So one of the talks, actually, I think I'll cover in part at the meeting will be a bit of misdiagnosis. I think the biggest challenge we do see always in CT or MR, ultrasound, wherever you are, is misdiagnosis. So that really is a problem. We all do our best not to make the wrong diagnosis. I think it's also a combination of not making the wrong diagnosis, but also not making the right diagnosis. So if you have a million hedges, can't rule out this, can't rule out that, can't rule out that, advise these 6 studies and clinical correlation, that probably is not a good report. And maybe somehow or other with that shotgun, bang, 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 you got the answer in there or close to the answer. That's not very helpful because the clinician doesn't know what to do. So you can't always say it's this diagnosis, but I think you can be suggestive, you can be very specific, and if you're not certain, you could be very clear what needs to be done: biopsy, EUS, MR, follow-up. So you need to be able to put that in your report to be really accurate. Now, one of the things about COVID, like for example, a lot of our patients are not able to come to Hopkins physically, like pancreatic cancer patients. So what I mean by that is we have a multidisciplinary conference on Tuesday. We see 10 to 14 patients. Typically, patients would come in the day before and they'd get a CT scan. I do the 3D. We do physical exams, lab work. We look at all the results at a group meeting, 11 o'clock to maybe 12, 12:30. And then the patients would meet with the clinicians depending on whether they were surgical candidates or they needed chemotherapy or radiation therapy or some combination, and they would get their results and the discussion by the end of the day. So it was really an easy way for a patient. You'd come in, and by the end of the day, you knew the good news or maybe the not so good news. The problem now is people can't come here, right? Because the danger of traveling becomes very real. So what we have done is we have the patients send their scans in, send their lab work in. We then look at those images. We meet with the patients remotely. So they do telemedicine consults, and they'll tell them what needs to be done. and go from there. Sometimes they can get surgery, they can come here at that point. But if they're just going to get chemotherapy, the chemotherapy can be done wherever they live. There's no sense for them to be coming here and putting everyone at risk. So we've really worked very hard. I think people deserve a lot of credit for working through what is a very cumbersome process. I mean, I know a lot of the clinicians had to get different privileges. It's really it really is impressive how much people have been able to do. So, regarding the process, it's worked out. But one of the things, what I've noticed, and this is one of the biggest challenges, we always make the point that one of the issues with imaging is that the studies are done poorly. You're not following the right protocol, you're not doing the right study. And so now we're able to look how often the right study is done. So all of these patients were asked to get a pancreatic protocol CT scan. Now we're going to write a paper about this. I don't have all the numbers, but I would say if I picked 10 patients, out of the 10, maybe 2 had studies done with dual phase with reasonable protocols. I would say the other 8 had single phase, often with oral contrast. Often the phase was something maybe 90 to 120 seconds or something like that, or even later, so that you really did not have a good look at the arteries, you did not have a good look at the veins, less than optimal look at the liver. It just was a terrible study. And we've had a number of cases where, okay, it looked like it was okay, then you repeat the study here as they get closer to surgery and the patient has liver mets. And it's only 3 weeks after the other study. So you take patients who were being considered as surgical candidates and they're surely not surgical candidates. And it wasn't like the mets grew in 3 weeks, but it was just crappy study. Poor injection protocols, too thick sections, motion-related artifacts. You name the problem, it was all there. So one of the challenges, the biggest source of error, or one of the biggest sources of error, to me, is doing the study poorly. If you're a radiologist and you have great studies, it's easy often to make the diagnosis, to find the finding, understand what the finding means, and then be able to give an intelligent report. To look at a mass and say, oh, the patient has a pancreatic mass, okay, well, that really isn't helpful. We need the arterioles, we need the veins, we need the liver, we need the local spread, we need all that information, nodes, omentum, mesentery. We need all that information in order to be able to move forward. And that simply is not something that we are seeing. So that becomes very important. I'll also mention to you all, hopefully I didn't press the wrong button here, but if anyone wants to put comments down, I think the thing should be set correctly, but I really have wondered. I don't see any comments. Usually I see a million comments, and maybe I did something wrong with the comment column, but I'm not sure. But anyway, if you have comments, just put them down. So protocols become everything. So I think what you need to be certain of, understand why the study is done. And in these cases, I know what they were told, pancreatic cancer, and you need to make sure you do the protocols correctly. If you're staging pancreatic cancer, you need dual phase imaging. You need arterial phase and you need venous phase. You, Scott, just put a test down. Thanks, you. That worked fine. You need to do dual phase imaging. That's the way it goes. There's no way around it. You need the stomach distended, duodenum distended. You want to use water. You don't want to use positive contrast material. I also am seeing a rash of cases where there's no oral contrast and there's no IV contrast. I don't know what it is. It was going bad before that people were cutting back on things, but in the COVID era, there's some idea that you go faster. So we're getting all of these cases, which I really don't think it was working well. That you're doing these studies, no IV, no oral, and then you're trying to make great diagnosis. You just really can't. What ends up happening is you either overcall or undercall, or you don't make the right diagnosis. And I think you need to really relook at what you're doing. I think clinicians are a little bit deceived of what is actually happening. They do rely on us to do the right thing. And even if they order the wrong thing, it's our job to call them to do the right thing. We look at our protocols every day. We call up if it doesn't make any sense or it's not the right protocol, because now you can't just automatically change your protocol, right? In the old days, the techs could go in and fix something if I told them to. Now they need confirmation from the referring clinician, which is all fine and good. It takes time, but you need to do it. You don't want to do it the day the patient's there. That becomes more of a problem. So you really want to do it when a couple days earlier so that you can speak to the clinician. So I think that works really, really nicely. It's a really good way of doing it. And that can be very helpful. I think also in terms of contrast injection, with fast scanners, honestly, you need to be at least 3 cc's a second. We like to be at 5 cc's, 4, 5, rarely 6, but 5 is our magic number, 4 is great, 3 is okay. Injecting 1 to 2 cc's a second peripheral vein is just really, really not good. You don't want to do that. So I think that's an important thing also to consider. How are you doing the protocols? Who's starting the IVs? If you really feel uncomfortable starting an IV, you're not very good, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a tech, get someone else to do it. I remember in the old days, we all did it, all the techs did it. Now we have an IV team with nurses, get the patients prepped, and they come in the room. The amount of extravasations we have is significantly less. The amount of unhappy patients we have are significantly less. High quality, high performance. There's an added cost, but the added cost is worth it, and it really improves the throughput. You're not wasting time with re-injecting or restarting IVs. All of that works really, really nicely. So that's another comment in terms of that. Then other things I do see, which I'm noticing, is a lot of times there's no reconstructions, and I don't mean 3D, that's okay, fine. I'm talking about multiplanar, coronal and sagittal. Now perhaps one could argue maybe they did them, but they didn't send them to us, but we typically get the entire bit of information. You need to have coronals and sagittals on every case, not the cases you have a question. Many times I'll think the study's normal on the axials. I'll look at the coronal or the sagittal and see things. Sagittal, SMA, celiac, IMA, the vessel itself, all of those things become critical. And it's very important to look very, very carefully at that. So it's just one of the cornerstones of what we do, right? Hugh Scott says poor studies, just like poor history or poor physical, will result in less than satisfactory outcomes. And that's 100% true. I remember I've spoken before, the Institute of Medicine made the point that causes of error are poor clinical history, poorly designed protocols, and then poorly performed studies. So we have enough problems reading the studies correctly when they're done correctly. If the studies aren't done correctly, it's even a bigger problem. So that's something indeed to worry about. Other things we are doing, I'm going to cover a few other things in additional weeks looking at pitfalls and protocols. I think, we are learning, and I gave a presentation of quiz cases the other week, but we are getting a better feel of the variability of adrenal masses. I've been looking at a lot of the path-proven cases of impressive adenomas that don't look like adenomas, carcinomas that don't look like carcinomas, atypical pheochromocytomas. So it's interesting, you get the feeling that the adrenal gland, for example, is the easiest thing in the world to diagnose. There's pheos, vascular. Carcinoma is big, adenoma is low density. All those things I just said are true. We have so many adenomas that are solid density with some enhancement. We have pheos that are vascular, but we have many pheos that are not vascular. We have large adrenal masses that are tumors, though that are carcinoma, though others we've seen as hematomas, we've seen as pheochromocytomas, we've seen them as prior hematomas. So there are many, many things, and I think it's exciting. I mean, one of the reasons CT in general is so challenging is because you're typically going to see atypical presentations of common diseases. So it is tricky being able to reach and understand the right diagnosis based on what you're doing. So that indeed becomes very, very important. Now, people do ask me also, what else are we doing? I think many of you know that we do a speaker series, and I even posted it on CTisus. One of the challenges, I can't post a link for everybody because not that we couldn't afford to have everyone there, but the one time we posted something, a whole bunch of bad people came in. That was early in the COVID experience and the Zoom experience. I know Zoom has more security now, but still, I don't want to have any issues. Tonight, I'm interviewing Linda Carter, who's better known as Wonder Woman. She was the original Wonder Woman before Gal Gadot. Tremendous talent. She's been around for many decades, both Wonder Woman, many TV shows, I think 25 different TV shows, 10 different movies. She was in Super Troopers and Wonder Woman 1 and Wonder Woman 2. She is also, her original love was music, and has been performing, released 5 albums, has a new song coming out. She has really been a leading proponent of using her fame to help other women, to help women's causes, other charities, from Crohn's disease to other, and also being very involved in the election process. She was a big pusher in Arizona for getting out the vote. It wasn't who to vote for, but vote. She was big into voting for governor, rather for senator, in Georgia, and she's been doing it for several years now, just getting out the vote. She was interviewed. It's a great interview I posted on CTisus from the Library of Congress. I posted some of her songs. She sings with her daughter, who also was a lawyer, who now became a singer. I'm not sure what's worse, law or singing, but nevertheless, you can do both. That kind of covers the bills. So we will be speaking with her. I'll be interviewing her about her career, about her advice, about life in the public eye, and just whatever else comes about. There'll be no singing by her or by me, so that part you don't have to worry about, but she sings very well, obviously. She has, as I said, 4 or 5 albums, so that really is very, very exciting. We also are working a lot on CTisus, on new lectures. We're working on new pearls. We're working on a whole bunch of new content. We're putting up a lot of the content many places, including YouTube, thousands and thousands of lectures and quizzes. We're working on new lectures, which are coming out weekly. We're working on trying to figure out what content is best for everyone. We're building out the AI portal. We have a lot of information on AI for beginners. AI is coming fast. If you're not doing it, you got to learn about it. You really need to know what's happening. Many people are getting involved in AI, whether it's for brain bleeds, osteoporosis, pulmonary embolism. There is 20 or 30 apps that are approved by the FDA, so you can buy it. It's coming. It's not something theoretical. It's physically here. Now, when are you going to get involved? That's decisions you need to make, but it's here. And we're working in our 5th year on pancreatic cancer, trying to have perfection in detecting pancreatic cancer. So those are some of the things, and if you have any questions, there's Liliana, who is going to join us tonight. Liliana's out there in California, in Palo Alto, and although she is also being very careful, it's a lot prettier in Palo Alto than it is in Baltimore. It's a lot more 20-minute away mountains. So, hi, Liliana. And yeah, so it should be a lot of fun today and tonight, and we'll let you know. We'll let you know how the talk goes. And with that, I thank everybody for their attention. And again, we're open to suggestions for topics or ideas, discussions, whatever you think you would like us to have. I did quiz last week. If people like quizzes, we're happy to do that. We're just trying to figure out ways of what else can we do to really meet the needs of our audience. So with that, I'll see you later. Have a great day.